Hello, hello, hello. This is Doc, aka Dr. Lariat, aka Rob Pandan, aka Ube Lashley, aka Yan Yan Bigelow, aka Big Scran Vader, Bosh, aka the Big Boss Monong, and I want to welcome you to the second part. This is season 2 ish. I know I didn't really take a break, but this is where the turnaround happens, and this is something new. I hope you guys are enjoying the new logo. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. I hope you guys are just having fun with this because I'm having a lot of fun. And I'm so happy to feel so blessed to have an audience that appreciates what I'm doing, that gets what I'm doing. And I wanted to start this part off with somebody I respect. And I'm doing this for them, this special intro for them because I respect the heck out of them. This is a show I'll do with Mara. And I'm going to give her a plug right at the beginning because we recorded this before she had this newsletter. And please subscribe to Mara Johnson at https colon / Mora MAURA GOHOST.io. That's Mara.ghost.io. It's her newsletter. It's cool. Please check out the subscriber tiers. Check her stuff out. She is one of the best writers, and I always am here to be happy to put money in someone's pocket who deserves it, someone that I appreciate, someone that I respect, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys enjoy the show. And yeah, we live. Hello, hello, hello. Salam, mabuhay, hola, guten tag. My name is Doc, and I'm being respectful today. So, joining me today is an educator, a music writer, and the most excellent, proficient star rater of them all. She is the best among us. In our private Discord, she is Maura. How you doing, Maura?
Hello. Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh no, the honor is mine. Having actual grown-up people who know how to talk is a nice break from who I've been talking to. So it's my pleasure to have you on here. And my first question, as it always is how did you get into wrestling, man?
Well, I first got into it through my sister, my younger sister, who was super into it when she was young. So I was born in 75. She's younger. She was born in 78. She got into it, I guess, during the, late 80s. And, her and her friend from across the street and her friend's little brother would all watch shows at my house.
Okay.
And I got into it then. Excuse me. And then, but that was kind of, passive. I just sort of, would watch it with them and make fun of them because, I was the jerky older sister or whatever. And then I didn't really get back into it. Well, in college I had a friend who was super into it and who...
Okay.
would show me ECW tapes that he had ordered. He lived down the hall from me, or upstairs from me in my dorm, and that sort of piqued my interest and everything. And he actually went on to work for WWE briefly. And so he took me to a Raw in New York, and I met Brock Lesnar and Stephanie McMahon, and Brock Lesnar was very, very big. And And then when I lived in Philly in the early 2000s, my good friend John Solomon, who is the best and who is the person who I talk about a lot because he's been a friend of mine since college.
Cool.
And he's a DJ and he owns a record label and he does this cool 25-hour Christmas radio show and he's done it for like 38 years or something. And he would come over to my partner at the time's place in Philly and we would watch Raw and SmackDown, and there was a website that his friend ran that ran wrestling recaps, and John would write some of them, so it was a whole thing. But then I kind of fell off when I moved back to New York, and then I moved to Boston in 2013, and my friend Jim, who, shout out to Jim, his brother Brian, Jim invited me over to watch the Royal Rumble where AJ Styles debuted.
Oh, that's
and that
cool.
started like talking about just wrestling and stuff. And you know, he taught me about like the sort of expanded universe that I had no idea about because I was, you know, a dumbass watching WWE as a 20-something. I was also a dumbass 20-something, right? So, and we started getting into it, and then we started like a Facebook group, and I sort of brought other people into the fold, and other people kind of revealed themselves to be wrestling fans. My friend Michael, my friends Tim and Jessica, who actually had a wrestling-themed wedding.
Oh, that's cool.
In South Victoria Island in 2019, I want to say. And, you know, we started this, like, discussion group, and, you know, we would go to shows. Like, I went to, one of my favorite photos that I've ever taken is from a show that was incredibly boring because it was like the WWE draft that happened at the DCU Center in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Okay.
But it was when Chris Jericho was calling everybody stupid idiots, and so there was just somebody holding up a sign that said stupid idiot section, but it was the wrong way, so it was facing the back of the arena, and I thought that was very funny, and I took a photo of it, and that is like one of the few wrestling photos in my favorites, which is actually mostly photos of my cat at this point.
We talk about pet photos.
Not him in a bit, yeah.
Oh.
And then, you know, I was talking a lot about wrestling and stuff, and, you know, this was when the kind of, you know, disenchantment with WWE was starting, and when AEW announced, my friend Michael told me about it, and we watched the press conference, and I was super into it, and I was just, like, really excited. And I had been doing contract work for a major ticketing company that had a content initiative, and I pitched an interview with the Young Bucks, and so I interviewed the Young Bucks via email before AEW launched. And it was like it was a very generic interview. I think you can find it online. It's basically like your first, you know, what was your first, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, and then that got me, but they gave me a press ticket to the second AEW show at Agganis Arena in Boston, which is an arena, the Boston College Hockey Arena, where I can take the train for like 10 minutes there, but I can also like walk to and from there because it is not that far from where I live. And I was just so into it. I loved the action and the fast-pacedness and like the characters, you know. Like, seeing Darby Allin skateboard down to the ring at first was super cool. And then, you know, I just really got into it. And then the pandemic happened, right? And AEW was, like, one of the things that was sort of still going on, like, a regular basis during the pandemic. So, like, my friend Ivy, who lives in New York, who is one of my closest friends, she had started watching, too, with AEW sort of coming into the mix. And every week, we would, like, watch, you know, like, quote-unquote, watch Dark together. Because we would, like, sit down, put on Dark, and, like, text each other during the whole thing. And so that was, you know, like, one of my pandemic lifelines. And obviously, like, having Dynamite, you know, there, too, helped a lot. So, yeah, and then I just sort of got in deeper and deeper, and, like, you know, I was, like, looking, like, when I get into something, you know, I want to talk about it, and I want to, like, learn about it. Yeah. So, like, I went around, like, I shamedly listened to Busted Open for a bit, but then Bully Ray made me insane.
I can't with that guy.
The worst. I was on the Observer board for a while.
Yeah.
But then like the board moderation was really poor, and it just wasn't like they raised the prices, and I was just like, forget that. And then I joined Voices of Wrestling Discord, and that was where I met a bunch of people. And like, I think it's interesting the sort of like social patterns of online spaces. Apart from my wrestling life, like I've been online in some form since like 1990. Because my dad was an systems analyst and a programmer, and he had like, I had an IBM PC when I was like, that my dad would let me use when I was like 6. And when I was in my early teens, he got a modem and he signed up for CompuServe because there were forums on there where he could talk to other programmers about stuff. But he let me use it, and I quickly commandeered it to, the first thing that I went to look at was music. And that sort of developed into, like, me spending a lot of money on CompuServe because it was charged by the hour. But then when I got to college, Northwestern, where I went outside of Chicago, was really generous about letting its students, similar to how my dad was pretty much with the computer, really generous about letting its students, even the ones that weren't in the computer science major or the School of Technology, use the resources that they had. So like, I had like email, and I was like trying to figure out like what email was, and I would type mail and it would be this gibberish, and then I was like, oh, that's Elm, and just the whole thing of like figuring out Unix commands and everything. And that was freshman year, and then when I went home from college for the summer, because I, couldn't stay in Chicago because I just didn't have the money. So I went home, I worked at a bank, and I also was trying to figure out a way to get into Northwestern servers without paying long-distance fees, since it was 1994, and calling from Long Island to suburban Chicago was pretty expensive. And I found an ISP, an internet service provider, located in New York. It was called Echo, and I really liked it because it was woman-founded, and it had a discussion board that, it was a BBS. It was a bulletin board system, and it also had internet access. So I would tie up the phone line, my dad's business line, being online all day. But it was really interesting to see the dynamics of online spaces sort of develop then, because, still, obviously, it was the 90s, it was all text. There was no social media, it was a closed system. And you could see, how communities, like, formed, and then, like, these, splinter groups would form, and on Echo you could make private conferences. So people would make private conferences. There was this one conference called X. I guess I can talk about it now since it's Echo's still around and still serving people, but X was this like anarchic conference where everybody was a host. So that meant that everybody could change the user roster. Everybody could delete threads. And there were even times when like people would just delete the whole conference entirely out of a fit of pique. But it was really interesting to see, like, the sort of public and private dynamics develop, and, things happen in public that, like, you didn't know what the context was unless you were in, like, this other conference or whatever. And so I think it's interesting that, like, that dynamic with Discord has just sort of mushroomed. This, like, splinter site. Everybody's, kind of like finding their people. And like in some ways it's good, right? Because it's like, I think that with these more private conferences, as long as you have people who are respectful of one another and respectful of whatever rules are placed on the discussion, you can really forge strong bonds. And Echo had that. Like, even though, X was sort of the way that everybody lashed out at each other, but we were all, there was nobody who was like pariah, or there's no, if somebody like really misbehaved, they were kicked off, because Stacey Horn, who ran it, could do that. But it was just interesting. It's just interesting to, like, sort of compare the online discussion spaces of then and now. And this is related to wrestling because there are so many discussion spaces out there.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of people who are, like, looking for the right one, you know? And it's like that results in this rabbit hole getting bigger and bigger. And, like, you know, obviously every community has that. You know, music has that, certainly. Yeah. Every public space, I think, once it gets to a certain critical mass, will start having splinter spaces, either public that are based on topic, or private or semi-private that are more based on affinity between individual users. So I'm in, like, 9 wrestling Discord servers now.
Well,
including, you know, and a lot of them are, like, you know, by different people, and some of them, like, started because of, like, connections made in wrestling forums, but they are not necessarily related to that topic. And then I also, you know, we'll talk about wrestling with, like, Ivy, who's, like, in one of the Discords I'm in, but, like, she's not a really big poster, or Michael, or, you know, other people. So yeah, it's just interesting, like, taking a step back and seeing how you can very quickly and easily and almost unwittingly immerse yourself in a topic online. And I think that was pretty much why I got into wrestling after moving to Boston in the first place, because I was very burned out on music. I had back-to-back full-time jobs that I unhealthily threw my entire self into, and I was fired from both of them because my guiding principles about how to run those outlets differed from the idiots that I worked for.
Yeah, you know, sometimes, like, you just don't mesh with who you work with.
Oh, no. I mean, like, but that's like the online media thing too, which, you know, is one of the classes that I teach, right? So, like, it's like, you know, the whole thing with the whole problem, and it's funny because, you know, Idolater, the site that I worked at in the late 2000s, was launched by Nick Denton, the guy from Gawker.
Wow.
And say what you will about Nick Denton, and there's certainly a lot to say about him because he is a very complex, flawed, possibly sociopathic, no offense, allegedly. I don't want to get sued. I mean, I don't think he'll sue me for it.
We use allegedly a lot on this show, so.
Yeah. But, like, you know, he sold the site. It was the day of the Gawker Christmas party, the second one that I was ever attending, and the last one that I would attend. And that morning, a headline hit that was like, Gawker Media is putting Idolater up for sale, and I was like, oh, okay, that's news to me. And, like, Nick took me aside at the party, which was at, like, his very infamous Soho loft, and he's like, you know, music just doesn't scale. And I was like, okay. And, you know, that was when I had first kind of heard about the concept of scale, which means basically, like, infinite growth, getting bigger all the time. And, you know, I had seen that up close because our traffic numbers were just not good because, you know, with music, it's like, first of all, it's like the way in which people consumed online content at the time. It was like, you know, people would either come to the site to, like, look and see what was new, or read it through an RSS reader, like FeedBurner, or, you know, what became Google Reader. And you have to, because of the nature of online browsing, and this is, like, one of my hobby horses that I talk about a lot, so I apologize if I'm, like, repeating myself. Online browsing is so different than the nature of, like, reading print. Because, you know, think about, like, opening a newspaper to, like, a 2-page spread. And you see a headline, and your eye just kind of, like, falls onto the story, right?
Yeah.
But if you're looking at that in a sort of, like, news site context, your eye falls on a headline, and instead of that process, that sort of, like, almost, you know, reflexive process where you just keep reading if you're interested, you have to, like, take the cognitive step, and it's a half-second step, but it still is, like, a barrier of being like, is this worth my time to click? And people say no a lot if it's something that's unfamiliar to them, or if it's something that, you know, that won't, you know, give them the high that they need for whatever reason. So we would see that very starkly with any kind of music recommendations posts that we put up, or like, you know, here's a new song from this artist, unless it was like a leak. Unless it was like, hey, here's the first song from Chinese Democracy that you're going to hear, you know, which we leaked, and we had it up for like half an hour before Del James like called me and was like, you have to take that down now. And I was like, okay. And I wasn't even the boss of the site at that point, but yeah. So that was sort of the main tension between both my sets of bosses that let me go.
Wow.
But I think it's interesting because, you know, one thing about wrestling discussion that like I can't stand is just like the constant discussion of metrics. And I know wrestling is designed to make money. Promotions are designed to make money. I know that. But at the same time, I also know that like the metrics, the way that they're, you know, tabulated and captured, is either completely flawed because like the Nielsen system is a system built for like the 57 channels and nothing on era, and not for the I can like go watch endless reruns of the British dinner party reality show Come Dine With Me and just immerse myself in that, and then go watch AEW on Max or whatever.
Wow.
And streaming services, like, you know, they're all kind of trying to figure out how they're going to make money, so they're just like spinning their stats as much as they can. So I guess it's just interesting because like I don't hate numbers. Numbers are great. Numbers are important, you know. But like I hate like living and dying by them, and like I think that you're seeing now this kind of like end stage capitalism where, you know, the numbers are everything, but then what you wind up with, because nothing's going to scale infinitely. Infinite growth is a myth. Infinite growth is not possible, right?
There's always peaks and valleys.
And, yeah, and just, you know, and even if you look at like, you know, things that get hot, right, or you know, viral phenomena, or whatever. Either they fly too close to the sun, like the Hawk Twa girl, or they like lock it to their gimmick for the rest of their life in a way that like ultimately results in diminishing returns because people are like, okay, do something new.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a very long tangent.
Hey.
But basically, yeah. So that's you know, basically, I got into wrestling in phases. I would say.
Yeah, you know.
But, you know, I've been into it now. I'm really glad that I finally went to my first AEW shows of 2025.
Nice.
Because I've been to a lot of AEW shows, you know. I've been to like a lot of Beyond shows, although I kind of fell off Beyond, just with stuff that happened with Beyond, and like I kind of got a little less interested in it. And then, you know, I went to the New Japan show in Lowell. That was really fun. And yeah, and you know, I go to live music for my job, for one of my jobs. So it's interesting, like seeing the sort of different setups for the venues, like the MGM Music Hall in Boston, which is where AEW was last month.
It looks so cool
in Boston. It's so cool, but like it's so funny because like when I go to that place for shows, I'm always like, oh, this place is so sterile, because it's like it's new. It opened in 2022, and like a margarita is like $25 and whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But it's so cool as a wrestling venue because it was so different, and also I just think that like AEW should just run places with those balconies all the time. Because they give it a really nice, like, chaotic, fun edge.
Yeah, and it looks like everybody's piling on top of each other, and like the theater aspect of it is like it fits, and then whatever acoustics are in the building, it like you don't really hear those AEW production value complaints since they've gone to the smaller buildings, which I like. I also like that they're doing more inventive cameras. Yeah,
I think it's really neat, and like, you know, and they're using the venues that they have also in interesting ways, like the Toni Storm promo where she like ran out to the boardwalk, you know, or even the Max Caster thing, the video that they put up after a collision on Saturday where he like ran down the boardwalk and almost stole like a I don't even know what that vehicle was, but he almost stole like some vehicle. But yeah, and you know, I think that's another thing about numbers, right? Is like, okay, like, you know, I write about music and like I do like, you know, I came from the college radio minds and like I love like, you know, finding records that are really interesting and weird and whatever, or not weird. That's like so self-referring, but like just interesting and like, you know, of doing unexpected things. And it's like you can get a lot out of something that may not have like fill the enormodome or whatever, but it's still, but like if it's appealing to like an audience of a critical mass and they're going crazy for it and that excitement is contagious, then I don't understand, like, you know, I think that's good. And again, it goes back to that whole idea of like the fallacy of infinite scale.
Yeah, because like I did go to a Jesse McCartney concert last year. I think I posted pictures of that. And
last year?
Yeah. Oh. I loved it. Jesse McCartney's he's a really good performer, entertainer. And like when you're there, it's a smaller venue, but like it's a venue everybody hits because Justin Timberlake also hit the same venue like I think like a week or two after. So it's just like,
what venue is it?
Shoot, it's in LA. It's where they had that little NSYNC reunion little dealy bob. I don't know off the top of my head because my brain don't work that well. But
wait, when was the show?
It had to be last year, so like around the time when Justin had like the NSYNC reunion thing. Because I remember we were talking before about Justin going on concert because like we were talking about like the new NSYNC song and what's going on with them before. Behind baseball. Oh yeah, the Wheel Turn. Yeah, it's also a nice venue. Yeah. It's right next to like a
the Wheel
really
Turn's
good.
Really nice. I've never been. I've been to Spaceland in LA.
Yeah.
In the Hollywood Bowl, and I think it was called the Alligator. I went to I went to LA in 1997. That was my first like vacation as a grown up. And but this band that I liked was really was playing a couple of shows. So I dragged my friend from college to them.
Well, you know it.
But yeah, it'd be really nice.
Yeah, those LA venues are like when I go to like the Wiltern or when I go to Pantages to watch musicals, because yes, I do watch musicals. Mm-hmm. I love musicals.
Oh, musicals are the best.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So like I love going inside the venue and seeing like that old Art Deco architecture and designs on the inside with all the statues and being inside those things, and you kind of like feel the history and like that kind of transfers a little bit to wrestling. Like when we look at like place that doesn't transfer anymore when we look at Hammerstein, because it doesn't look like Hammerstein did. Because I mean, I don't really like what they did with that paint job. I like the weird wood paneling that it was there before, but maybe that's just my eyes, my nostalgia.
No,
eyes.
I think you know, it's funny because I have like zero recollection of what the Hammerstein looks like under lights because I've been there a bunch. But like I was always like covering shows there, and you know I would get out before the house lights went too far up, I guess, or I was like underneath the balconies, or because like I saw like Kylie Minogue there, and Pulp, and the Pixies, and this EDM show where a guy grabbed my notebook and wrote "I rage all day" in huge letters.
Wow, no class.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great story. So, you know, props to him for giving me the story that I've been telling for like now 14 years or something. So.
I mean, I remember this is such a stupid story, but I'm going to tell it because I'm in the middle of it anyway. I remember I went to like a wedding, right? It was like at a golf course, and there is this guy who looked a lot like Billy Corgan, and he started talking wrestling with us because me and my sibling and my cousins were all just talking wrestling like in the back of like whatever this golf course was, and then like he started like, "Oh, you love wrestling? Oh yeah, you know I love territorial stuff." And I was like, okay, this guy really looks like Billy Corgan, but it can't be Billy Corgan because why would Billy Corgan be here? And that's the whole story. It's just like some weird guy that kind of looked like Billy Corgan talking to us about wrestling, and then I go find out like maybe like a couple weeks later, I see him on ECW hitting Steve Corino with a guitar, and I'm like, could that have been him? It really looked like him, but that might have just been him. Could have been him. I mean, he's a weird guy, so maybe he went to a golf course for no reason. Or maybe he went to a wedding, somebody's wedding. I don't know. Could have been him, but it really looked like him. He even had like the black outfit with the. Was on Top Chef. What's that?
Sorry.
I didn't watch.
Private Chef was on this season of Top Chef.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
I love Top Chef.
I was rooting for her, but I did too. Are you watching this season?
No, not right now, because I've kind of just been like, I've been kind of a little bit off the grid-ish when it comes to like watching TV. Besides, something we're gonna talk about in a little bit. But like, it's just been it's been nice. I've just been like, hanging out with my dogs. They're so cute.
That's good.
Yeah. And like, that's about it. And
do they have TV that they like to watch?
So Rocco, I don't know if he's blind or not, but he likes the sounds of like those big action movies. He likes feeling those sounds.
Oh.
And then Blueberry, if I turn on like anything with food on it, he'll just be instantly looking at it and like licking his lips. So that's fun. Yeah.
Nuno is my cat, and he is 9 years
Adorable.
old. I adopted him 8 years ago next month, so I'm very excited to, right?
Yeah.
No, 9 years ago next month, because he's going to be 10. So he was 8 months when I adopted him. Oh. So 9 years ago next month, because it was 2016. And he loves, like, like, when I put on, like, Max, and, they have that, like, very hypnotic, like, bong, bong.
Yeah.
He gets really into that.
the event is about to start.
Yeah, there's also, but I think it's just, like, the fact that it's, like, it's like this blue on blue, like very kind of like, relaxing, but I think, and the sound too is very relaxing. But we watched this movie, I put it on for him, and then he like will stare at it for like 5 minutes and then walk away. But there's this movie on Amazon Prime called A Cat and Mouse Game. It's also on YouTube. And it's like 50 minutes long, and it's this, it's just like a story of like a cat that lives in a French summer house and a mouse that was left behind by the former tenants who escapes from his cage, and then like it's just the two of them like chasing each other for like 50 minutes.
Oh. Is it a live action or is it just?
Yeah, it's live action. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's good chill out watching, so recommended if you need to chill out. And the music is really fun and lively too.
Yeah. And like when I talk about like watching TV, there's a show. I'm gonna call it a seminal show of this decade because this is the 20s, and it just had its series finale this week, and I'm talking about The Righteous Gemstones. And yeah, so we've been talking about this show off and on for like the entire run, and I gotta say, that ending was pretty okay. I mean, because if you look at all the endings during the spoiler alert, during like the whole series run, it always has that family coming together at the end part. Even in season 2, when the family came together on the murder of those two,
right?
Two people. But it was still nice to see them all banded together finally, with the lost son finally being accepted back into the family fold and all of that stuff. So it's pretty. I don't know how to feel like, because I love the whole Carolina series that he had with Eastbound and Down to Vice Principals.
Eastbound and Down, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And to this show, and like it's just like it feels like a complete show. And for this last season, a lot of people were complaining about their growth from like well, if you look at it, like, really, Judy was the only one that was kind of selfish. And then she was actually grown to the season to want to take care of BJ. Jesse kind of, like, took a step down because, like, throughout the whole series, he's trying to be, like, this boisterous, the leader of the thing, but he literally just, like, this season he took a step back, and, like, you just see the other siblings able to, like, rise up, particularly Kelvin. Kelvin was the one that, like...
Yeah.
And, like, if you watch the series...
Yeah. Or top class selling man, yeah.
Yeah. If top class following man. And, like, if you watch the series, because, like, I was watching, like, bits and pieces of season 1, 2, 3, just, like, to set up for this little inside baseball for you guys. And then, like, like, at the first season, he said, Eli says, I trust Kelvin to have the most growth and be the most trustworthy of the whatever. And you kind of do see it as season progresses. Like, because he starts off with the ministry, then he gets his muscle man, and then it just keeps going and going, and then he finally comes out the closet, and he has, like, the new youth ministry is, like, you know, like,
yeah.
And, like, you kind of see it as in him, like, he's the one that had, like, the ascension, even if they don't really, like, say it, like, with their whole heart. He kind of ascended to, like, the top of the family, and I think that's pretty cool. And
yeah,
like, a lot of this show is based on, like, family dynamics, right? And, like, you have the oldest, the middle, and the youngest child, and the middle child is always going to try to, like, stand out by being, like, sometimes they're rebellious or the bad girl, and then the oldest always tries to, like, be the one that's in charge. And as the oldest son, I kind of, like, there's a part of me that was like, damn, am I like Jesse? Am I, like, always telling everybody that this is the way it's got to be, that I'm the one that has to do it? No. And then, like, because, like, when you watch shows or pro wrestling, you kind of, like, do a little bit self-reflection of, like, am I like this a little bit? And, like, I think that's part of, like, consuming media, is, like, finding yourself in things. Particularly, like, for me, I didn't really, like, see a lot of people who look like me or acted like me on TV. So, like, when I see, like, little bits and pieces, I, like, kind of glom onto it. Like, I have an Uncle Baby, right? And then when, like, they introduced Uncle Baby Billy, I'm like, I didn't know white folks had, like, Uncle Babies. So, like, and, like, that just, and, you know, like, the whole, like, to bring it, like, to my whole thing, like, when I'm looking at, like, culture and stuff, I'm like, you know, like, they're kind of like a Filipino family. They're, like, super into Christ and God and fellowship, but they're also, like, super showy because they want to show off whatever, like, nice clothes, nice cars, whatever they have. And then, of course, they'll fight with each other, but at the end of the day, they're family, so, like, they'll always, like, be family with each other. And that's, like, I think that was the whole moral of the story, is, like, your family, and, like, season 3 when they had, like, the cousins come and then whatever, but at the end they were forgiven. And then season 2, Macaulay Culkin's character, I forgot the name, he was the son of Baby Billy, and they reconciled.
Baby Billy's son, yeah.
Yeah, and, like, and then in this season it was just, like, you know, they were able to finally be okay with their dad finding purpose without their mom. Cause
yeah.
And, you know, to bring it back to wrestling, I think in season 2, that's when they had, like, showed Eli working Memphis, and I thought that was fun.
Oh, that was so great. Yeah, that was really awesome.
Yeah, and, like,
well, what are some other examples of representation that you have appreciated over the years? I'm curious.
So, like, as far as, like, seeing stuff, like, you know, the most obvious one for me, based on, and I know you brought this up, like, all randomly, West Covina, California. That, I grew up in the SGV area. And they actually filmed that in the movie theater. I'm not going to say more about what I did there because my wife might be listening. I love you, hon. But I was a kid back then, so allegedly that's where I went on dates with. So it was cool to see that, and like to actually see a Filipino guy be the object of desire on TV.
Yeah.
Without it being, because usually when I see a person of color that's going to be like the love interest, and they happen to be an Asian person, it's always on the eyes of like it's a gay Asian person. So like it's always like, okay, it's cool that's there, but like that's not my experience. So like, and I know the actor that plays Josh Chan, he is homosexual. Power to you, man. But like to actually see like it Filipino represented as like desirable, cool, whatever. But like, not that I felt like I had to be seen as a cool person, but like I knew so many Josh Chans that are like just a Filipino guy who backflips, does dances, and like is a show off. I knew so many guys like that. So to see that presented on TV, and especially when they had that Filipino Thanksgiving, and like that was so dead on. Oh man, she makes dinuguan, and that's funny to me. That was more representative of the Filipino experience than a movie made by Joe Coy called Easter Sunday that is not representative of the Filipino experience at all.
Why? I don't know this movie. What's the deal?
So, Joe Coy, I like him as a comedian. He's funny to me. He made a movie. He's saying, yeah, it's gonna have all super Filipino American cast, right? It does. It had him. It had Tia Carrera. Tia Carrera was my first crush. It was Tia Carrera in Wayne's World.
I was gonna say Wayne's World. Yeah.
So like he had like all this cast, right? They talked about like whatever Filipino things, but like buy on boxes. That's a box we send back home full of like stuff that we have here, and we donate it to them and our relatives over there. But like it took place during Easter Sunday, when for us there's Thanksgiving and there's Christmas. There's not necessarily an Easter thing. There is an Easter thing, but it's just like we go to like somebody's house, egg hunt, eat ham, have a potluck, whatever. And like so like that movie, I thought it's cool to have like people that look like me on screen, but that's not the Filipino American experience. In my experience, and when I talk to other Filipino Americans, they kind of feel like you just throw us on like on a thing, and like it becomes like a palette swap, right? So you could do like an Easter Sunday, and then it becomes like, okay, but we're gonna make it for like South Asian, so like we'll make a Diwali movie. But a Diwali movie would be like way more representative because they actually celebrate Diwali on that kind of level, whereas no Filipino or Filipino American celebrates Easter in that way. And finding representation in media, I think it's now it's not that difficult because we have so many actors, like Bruno Mars, Olivia Rodrigo, Big Dave Bautista. Yeah. There's all these.
I could quite a bit. He has a new single out that's really good.
Yeah.
So check it out.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna go on Spotify and find that. It's like you find these representation now, and like it's like so much, and I'm happy. I'm happy to have that. Happy to have the representation now, but like for the new generation, because like now kids see like all this stuff like BTS or whatever, and like it's in mainstream, it's ubiquitous. It doesn't like, oh cool, there's Asian stuff. It's like, oh cool, without the addition of like, oh, there's Asian things in it. And I think that's cool nowadays. And when I was a kid, I kept trying to find like representation and stuff like, like on TV. So when I would see like Dante Bosco on like Fresh Prince or Hanging with Mr. Cooper, or see Ernie Reyes Jr. I'm just naming all these people because, or Phoebe Cates.
Great. I think it's so interesting. I'm very fascinated by it because because I think you're right, and like I think also, you know, I mean, you said like, you know, it's very prevalent now, but like it came a long way in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Right? Because like I think that like the last 15 years has been there's been sort of like not a turbocharging, but just like I think the expansion of content, you know, and like the peak TV thing definitely helped, and like, you know, just the fact that there are so many ways to distribute movies and films and TV shows and miniseries and whatever, you know, that has been a boon for wider representation. And I think it's good, and I also think that, like, you know, I think that you're seeing that kind of, like, tension where a lot of networks or even, like, the bigger cable channels are still very, very conservative.
Yeah.
Small conservative in what they show. You know, like, because they want proven quantities.
It's
right?
it's always it's about what plays in Middle America. Will Sally and Bobby be sticking around for it?
It's too, because it's like, it's, I don't know. I mean, I just think that, like, I think that a lot of, and going back to what I was talking about earlier, I just think that a lot of the measurements of demographic stuff are super flawed now, because I feel like, you know, we had a whole new storytelling medium spring up in the last, 3 decades with video games.
Yeah.
Right? And, like, that I think is, you know, indicative, and let alone social media and, you know, YouTube and people putting stuff on YouTube. But, like, I think that, you know, there's just, it's been such a fundamental shift, but it's also been so enmeshed in the culture that people haven't been able to, like, take a step back from it properly.
Yeah, and, like, that whole, being able to step back and trying to measure, like, demographics. I absolutely hate numbers discussion, ratings breakdowns, because it's totally not representative of the show as a whole. And like, people will reference it, all this stuff, but like, the only people who really talk about it in a sensical manner, where they say like, the reason that MJF is placed this specifically at the top of the 9 is because it's a strong hour for them to be showing, and that's why his hours always pop. And like, Trish and Sarah are the only ones that are saying this stuff, and then other guys are using these numbers to dunk on wrestlers not being draws, or dunk on the women being like on a dead space. And I'm just like, none of you guys know what you're talking about. It's just like using numbers to just like dunk on people without any context for what these numbers are, and it's just like, and you know, like, when I talk about coming onto the online space, as a woman, and I'm not a woman, but for you as a woman, and like, a lot of the times we hear the stories of you started watching when you were when you were like 13 years old, 7th grade. So a lot of the time, like, if you're watching wrestling, people will say, "Oh, that's not for you, that's for boys," and that's just on the playground level. But we still see this kind of attitude in these online spaces where the opinions of women are disregarded just because they're women. And to me, that's disgusting. Because in my estimation, women are usually the ones who have the most, how can I say, sane takes on what we're watching.
Yeah.
When we're watching stuff on TV, like, a lot of the things are geared towards keeping the women's attention, like a show such as You, or like Korean dramas. And when it comes to shows like You, my wife had to explain all this stuff to me, so I was the annoying husband asking, "So what's this mean?" Well, whereas, you know, like, I'm watching, like, say, like, Daredevil, and then she asked me, like, "Oh, so what happened?" And, like, "Oh, where did that come from?" So it goes both ways. I know You was made for women. But I liked it. But it's just, I find it great that you're able to express yourself in ways. And I know in our Discord, people were saying that you would have left right away. But I kept telling people, no, she's gonna fit right in. What you're doing is prejudging her based on the on the premise that she's a classy lady. Not that you're not. You are. But like just on that fact, that's kind of like, that's kind of misjudging how women are, especially in the wrestling space, because they would be able to like decipher like they're already coming into a male space, so why wouldn't they know how to do it, especially with men who are, I'm going to say, elevated in their terms of interactions with women, because we actually talk to women. So, floor is yours.
Well, it's interesting because, like, I don't know, I feel like since I was young, I've always been sort of interested in, like, flipping gender dynamics. Like, I remember, this is so dumb, but, like, in 6th grade, so this was in 1987, so we had, like, 6th grade graduation, right? Yeah. And my friend and I were tasked with writing lyrics to New York, New York.
Wow.
The class would sing, about graduating and going to middle school. And I remember that my friend and I were like, okay, let's have the boys sing the line about the home ec stuff, and the girls sing the line about, the shop class stuff.
Yeah.
So boys would sing, in my mind, the boys would sing, like, we'll learn how to cook, we'll sew and knit too. I can't believe I still remember this. We'll sew and knit too. And then the girls would sing, we'll learn to use a power drill. And then everyone would come in middle school. You can probably hear, like, the cadence of New York, New York there.
Oh, yeah.
But
I love karaoke.
The teacher switched it. They were like, no, we really don't have the boys singing about that. And I was like, why? It would be so funny. At the time I thought, but I also just thought it would be cool.
Yeah.
And then, I had my, like, inciting incident that led me to my current occupation, where I went to a record store in my hometown, and unfortunately this record store doesn't exist anymore, and it's a bummer, because it was like it was like this weird little building. It's a Dunkin' Donuts now. But
large regular.
What?
Large regular.
Oh, large regular. Yeah. I just drink iced coffee all year. That's my most New England trait, is drinking iced coffee all year. But I went and I bought the single, so this dates at A, for Poison's Unskinny Bop. So it was like 1990. And I was like 14. And the clerk, like, made fun of me from behind the counter. And I was like, buddy, I'm giving you $3.99. Like, come on, And that was the day that I was like, F these guys. I'm going to show smarter than you and show that I'm going to know more about music than you. And that was sort of my hero's origin story. Some might say villains, but I say heroes. And, I think one thing about me with my writing, and, like, I think this is what, like, fried my brain in the late 2000s and early 2010s when I was handling blogs, was that I always wanted to be right. I always wanted to, like, source everything, and, this is why, like, earlier this week, like, there was that letter that Lynda McMahon sent to Harvard that was clearly written by Trump.
Yeah.
But there was an image circulating of the letter marked up and edited. And people were like, Harvard posted this on their social media, and it's like, it was a good edit. And I was like, I don't think Harvard posted this. And then I was, like, going around, and I was like, I couldn't find the Harvard post on it. So, it's like that kind of stuff. But, like, I'm always trying to, like, be as exacting. And if I don't know, I'll ask. But, like, I think that asking is so powerful, and it also lets the person that you're talking to, like, know that you're not going to be, like, rigid and, unflinching about whatever. There's certain things that are, like, lines for me. Like, Katy Perry is a line. Meghan Trainor is a line. Seeing the Red Hot Chili Peppers in concert is a line. But I can be pretty convinced on a lot of things, and I can definitely, like, approach media the way that, like, other critics in my field do, where it's like, okay, even if I don't aesthetically like this, is it doing what it sets out to do?
Yeah.
Which I think is an interesting question to ask. And then you can ask yourself, like, okay, well, why, if it's doing what it's set to do, why am I not liking it? And that's where the interesting insights come into play. And that's, something that I think in the heat of the moment, in, like, online real-time conversations, you can definitely stick to flip snap judgments because it's quicker. And certainly, the differences in, like, the one-liners that I would have while, like, live blogging the Video Music Awards versus, like, writing a recap of it the next day are very different.
Yeah.
But, like, I think that, for me, if anybody is listening to this and is like, you're full of crap, I know when you were totally wrong about something, bring it. Okay, let's go. But I always try to be at least, like, correct. And if I'm wrong, then I'll be, I'll be embarrassed. I'll feel like an idiot. But, like, I'll be as gracious about it as I can. And I think that that's so much of it. And I feel like, there are definitely people who I read, I don't read them really because they make me angry. But there are people in these fields who comment on culture who I'm just like, you're a dumbass, and I can't stand your takes. But like, instead of, like, because I think what happens, and the internet makes it really easy.
Yeah.
Is like I remember when I was, like, blogging and, like, personal blogging in, like, the late 90s and early 2000s, we would joke about having, like, the hate surf. Where it was, like, the blogs of people who, like, mystified us for whatever reason. And I think that now, like, I'd rather just not engage with the writing of insert male culture writer who I do not respect here. Then, like, then go in and be like, oh, I can't stand this,
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's the answer to your question, but, like, I feel like, it's just, for me, I definitely get frustrated, and, like, I think that so much of my, things were really bad, like, even 20 years ago. Like,
yeah.
I wrote a thing in, like, 2012 that's probably my most famous piece that was just a response to how certain male writers in places like Esquire and GQ, which, as opposed to women's magazines, were men's magazines, but were seen as, like, culture magazines for everybody. And this is, I think, what a lot of people don't get, is how, like, I saw a discussion where a bunch of dudes were like, oh, I watch soap operas, I watch stuff for women. And it's like, it's not that you watch stuff for women. It's that stuff for men is seen as the default, right?
Yeah.
And it's that stuff for men is seen as, like, and like, similarly to what you were talking about with, Filipino American representation, I think that whiteness is seen as the default in America as well.
Yeah.
And so, like, you once you sort of, like, flip things around, like I was talking about this earlier with someone where it's like,
hello?
I think that, hello?
Hello? You cut off there, Mara, sorry.
Oh, that was weird. I didn't do anything at all. I heard the nows, heard the sound and then not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that, what happens is, like, women and their interests, and, like, women are not monolithic.
No.
There are gay women, there are straight women, there are ace women, there are air women, there are bi women, there are poly women, there are pan women, everything.
Yeah.
That's just sexuality, too. There are women, in, like...
You can't put
women
people
are
into boxes.
of that... Sorry?
You can't put people into boxes.
Yeah, and, like, I think that is... And, like, I think that, like... I do think that a lot of the desire for categorization now comes from online dating. Because I think that online dating encourages people to put themselves in these boxes of traits. Yeah. And I think that ideal has sort of spilled over into the rest of culture. And obviously, like, you know, marketing too, right? Marketing has definitely increased it. But, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm, like, ranting.
Oh, no. Like, when we're talking about what has become, like, the default in, like, the zeitgeist, it's always going to be a tall, white, handsome man. Like, that...
Yeah, and it's, like...
Like, who's that guy that's in Twister and all those movies now? Like, he just looks like the blank-faced white man. No skin off my teeth, no shaming him, but, like...
But, yeah. I don't know. I think that it's just interesting.
Yeah.
And so, I think for me, it's just like, you know, when I was a kid, I used to resent that my mom gave me such a weird name. My mom and dad gave me such a weird name because I could never, like, find it, like, on those, like, stickers that you would get at, like, you know, the license plates, the things that you would buy at the souvenir store. My sister had a much easier time.
Yeah. My wife's like that, too.
And I really, like, it made me annoyed, you know? I'm like, now I think it's an asset because, like, I am just me.
Yeah.
And so, if people, you know, vibe with that, fine. If not, okay, whatever.
Yeah. I know we're going to be short on time here, but I have just, like, a couple more questions for you. Since you're a music writer and, you know, being a Filipino man, I love karaoke. What are your go-to karaoke?
Well, I have a playlist on Spotify called Karaoke Songs that has 49 songs on it that I like singing. I haven't done karaoke in a while, but I really like, let's see, Teenagers by My Chemical Romance.
Okay.
I like singing Violet by Hole. Sign Your Name by Sananda Maitreya, formerly known as Terence Trent D'Arby. Pound Cake by Van Halen. That's one that I really enjoy. Everything About You by Ugly Kid Joe. So Many Men, So Little Time by Mikkel Brown. Just Be Good to Me by the SOS Band. If somebody wants to duet with me, we could do Scream by Michael and Janet Jackson. Not Your Fault by AWOL Nation. Automatic by the Pointer Sisters. And then my number one is probably Jailbreak by Thin Lizzy. Which is also like the song that I will put on a jukebox to announce to a bar that I'm there.
Oh, yeah, so that's your entrance theme, huh?
Yeah, that's my entrance theme, yeah.
Yeah, that hit that Thin Lizzy and, you know, Mara's coming through.
Yeah.
I like to sing a couple songs. I like to sing When You Say Nothing at All by Alison Krauss.
That's a nice one. That's a really good one, yeah.
I like to do, you know, it's really hard, but I like On Bended Knee from Boyz II Men.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, you know, like, when I want to annoy my wife, because she hates when I sing like my dad, because my dad loves to do, like, you know, lounge singer music, but I really love to sing Somewhere Beyond the Sea, Somewhere Waiting for Me. I like, you know, Bobby Darin is cool to me. And, like, the two other songs are pretty funny for me personally, because it pops me when I put them on. It's of course, it's More Than Words, Extreme. And then, like, the other one I sing is, of course, going to be Wanted Dead or Alive, because I'm so basic, so those are my songs. That's my set list.
You're not. Wanted Dead or Alive is a great all-time song. Like, so, yeah, fantastic.
Hey.
That's a good list. I like that list.
Yeah, I like to pop around everywhere, so it's just like...
Yeah.
Yeah. I was about to break down, like, yeah, you have a Doc concert, you know. Not the rock concert. And,
yeah, do it in Discord, man.
Hey, you know, like, if we do, I don't know, is there such a thing as like a live stream karaoke? I feel like that would be fun.
During the pandemic, yes. A friend of mine who runs karaoke nights in Philadelphia was selling virtual karaoke. Obviously, it wasn't perfect because of the lag of Zoom.
Yeah.
But for my birthday in 2020, I had a virtual karaoke party.
That's fun.
And it was really fun.
I forgot my other one. Open Arms.
Oh, good. Yeah, great one.
Yeah,
classic.
I have to. I was seeing that before Arnold Pineda was on YouTube, so shout out to Arnold Pineda.
Yeah.
Yeah, my parents actually watched him in concert when he was over here. That was fun. I didn't watch him, but they did. He was a whole big phenomenon. I want to tell people that the name of the show, The Prescription, came aboard because of you. And I was brainstorming this with you just in the DMs. So like, you said it'd be better if you shorten it, and it just kind of like rang to me, and like I want to thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, no, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
I love giving branding advice. If anybody would like a consultation, feel free to reach out. Yeah. I'm very findable on the internet.
Oh yeah. I am so honored to have you here.
Oh nice. Thank you.
This woman, let me tell you. She told me not to say females anymore because that's weird things that what did those guys say? I'm a high value male. Those are the guys that say female, and I don't want to be that guy. So well,
also I said it was dehumanizing because it is, because like a woman is like a female is a modifier for a species.
Yeah.
Right. Like so, it's like a female cat or a female human or a female lemur or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, females, right?
But a woman is a woman. Is a woman.
But a woman is a woman, and you gotta appreciate. Words are important. I'm very like exacting. I try to be as exacting as possible with the words I use because I feel like they have so much power, and there are so many of them, and you can really. Like one of my favorite pieces of advice that I give to my students is like, there's this website, like rightwords.co.uk, and it has this thing where you put a block of text into it, and then it tells you how many times you use certain words. And obviously there are certain words like the and that you're just not gonna, wind up. But it does show you, like, when you use, like, maybe the same adjective 3 or 4 times in a 500-word piece. Well, why are you using that word? What are you trying to say? That maybe that word is communicating to you in another way, like maybe the aesthetics of the word are like speaking to you in addition to what it actually means. So I have them, go through their assignments, and then I have them, and analyze the words they use. And then I have them use, because we have access to this through the BC Library, the Oxford English Dictionary, and I just heard a crash in my kitchen. Could you hold on for like 1 second?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I'll do it. 1 sec.
Lying here waiting here in the dark. Feeling your heartbeat with mine. Softly we listen. You're so sincere.
Okay, I'm back.
I was just singing.
I heard you singing.
Yeah.
Sorry. So my cat, my cat, I've had him since 2016, so I had him during the pandemic. And he got very used to being the center of attention.
Oh.
So when he's not for like a certain length of time, he tends to act out. And I have this box right now on my kitchen table of glass jars because a friend of mine loves the jars that the Bon Maman preserves come in. She uses them for like her sewing notions.
Nice.
And she asked me to send her. Like I've been saving these like jam jars for her for like 3 months, and they're all in a box that I have to just like pack and send. And so when I heard that crash, I was like, oh God, did he knock over the box of jars? He did not, but I gave him bonito flakes to satiate him anyway.
I know all about saving random jars. We have a garage full of random jars. So, relatable.
Yeah, like I have this giant box, and so I just need to like figure out how to, I'm probably going to just take it to like the FedEx store and be like, can you help me so these don't break in transit? Sorry about that. My cat is he can be a little needy. But it's cool because he hangs out with me all night. So.
At least you feed him right, unlike Britta. Shame on you.
I do. I feed him. Yeah. He is missing 8 teeth.
Oh.
He can't eat like dry food.
Yeah.
And then he has like allergies, so he can't eat chicken. So I just feed him duck and tuna all the time.
Okay.
So he eats really well.
That's a spoiled kitty. Yeah. I love.
But you've seen the photos. He's the best.
Yeah. You've seen my babies. Oh man.
Yeah. No.
Hey, do you know like that's the best part of Discord is like when we have the pet trading pictures and everybody just starts posting their pets. I'm just like.
I think that's the best part of every online space.
Yeah.
Is
these little innocent creatures, these little fur balls. And like we talk about sweet things. I got these jars from Mellow Mellow, which is like a coconut jelly place that I go to with my wife, and we have like a box full of like 18 jars of them, and she's like, I could use them for vinegar. I could use them for. But my question is, as I think about sweet things, is what's your favorite dessert?
Oh man. Dessert. I actually had my favorite dessert in a restaurant yesterday.
Ooh.
In Boston, which is this restaurant called Nina. It's an Italian restaurant run by this chef named Douglas Williams. There are 4 outposts of it in Boston. I went to the most recently opened one, which is in the Fenway area. I had a doctor's appointment there yesterday. And the food there is the best. And they have this almond cake that they put like a seasonal jam. So it was a mixed berry jam this time. And sweet cream on it. And it's really, really good. My favorite candy is seasonal Reese's.
Oh.
Snack, the full size.
Oh, okay.
My favorite dessert that I have at home is Petit Pot, which is this line of very dense, rich puddings. And my favorite ice cream is pretty much anything that incorporates chocolate and peanut butter.
Hell yeah. I am a Moose Tracks guy. Okay. I love Moose Tracks so much.
Yeah.
Peanut butter fudge.
No, I'm like, Jenny's salted peanut and chocolate chunk.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that is really good. Or, like, the Talenti chocolate peanut butter cup.
I also like the Tillamook peanut butter cup.
Oh, I haven't had that yet.
No,
I'd like to try that.
Moose Tracks can just be chocolate and chocolate. But I like But the one that they sell for Tillamook is Moose Tracks peanut butter fudge, and like sometimes they have Moose Tracks with peanut butter cups, and I just love that flavor. There's this ice cream place here, not close to where I live, but like a little ways up, called Scoops on Tap in Covina, and they do this ice cream called the peanut butter and jelly ice cream. And I get that with their version of Rocky Road, and it's like, it was tremendous. I was like, oh, I'm in heaven. And then my wife looked at me and she said, "You're eating too much because I have diabetes." And then I told her, "Hey, you're on my life insurance plan. So what are we doing here?"
Amazing.
Anyway. Oh, yeah. Because I have diabetes, and I told my wife that you're on my life insurance plan, so if you just let me keep eating myself to death like this, you're going to benefit. And she smacked me in the head.
That's married life. That's something I don't know about, I guess. Learning about it is a journey.
Yeah. I want to let you know this. So, my favorite girl cousin, shout out to Ate Kimi and her husband, thank you, Kuya Eric, are they're both Gen X. I guess they're Gen X because they're born in the 70s, and then there's this feeling I had with that's my cousin, and then my younger cool aunts were all born in between 1968 and 1979, so I would have all these cool aunts back in the day, because I remember one of my aunts, shout out to you, Auntie Raleigh, she was super into goth stuff, so that's how I got into stuff horror movies and Depeche Mode and stuff like that, because it was based on my cool aunts on Gen X. And I know a lot of times now Gen X is lauded and grouped in with the boomer generation, but when we look at fashion, when we look at music, when we look at video games, when we look at pro wrestling, everything from that Gen X generation from the 90s when they were at their apex for the media, that's still seen as cool to this day. And I think you're cool.
Thank you. I do think that I am very wary because I have seen older Gen Xers that I know get a little sort of stuck in their state of mind, because I feel with Gen X, so much of Gen X was a reaction because the boomers were just so dominant and huge, and Gen X, is kind of a response to the baby bust of the late 60s and 70s. And so I caution, I am always wary of people having too high self-regard, because I feel that's the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
So it's always good to stay humble, and it's always good to stay open. And I mean, I feel very lucky that I teach undergraduates, because I think that they keep me on my toes.
Yeah.
Even though I remember the first sort of recognition or realization that I had was when, I think this was in 2014, I was teaching my music class, and I was because I have this whole session about how using genre names to describe music is often results in confusion. Because so many people have different reference points for rock or whatever. So I asked the kids, I was well, what do you think of when I say the phrase classic rock? And somebody raised his hand and was the 90s, and I was but he was right. When classic rock, was invented, and shout out to my friend Nick Benvenia, who comes to my class and talks about radio.
Yeah.
It was basically a way to kind of cleave off all of the stuff that had happened before 1979 into its own format, so that stations could play new rock music. And it was also related to this kind of segregating of the rock format, but that's a whole story that's in the book Top 40 Democracy by Eric Weisbard that you should definitely read. But it's interesting because the definition of classic rock has been kind of slowly rolling forward over in the years since the format's introduction.
Yeah. My niece
to eventually include Journey, or Old Time Rock and Roll by Bob Seger, or Sweet Child of Mine, or Wanted Dead or Alive. And then it shifted again, where it was okay, now we have Interstate Love Song, and we have Smells Like Teen Spirit and Even Flow. And now it's shifting even more, where it's okay, we have FW by the Foo Fighters, and we have In the End by Linkin Park, And so I think that it's always good to kind of just stay on your toes about realizing that similar to Gen Xers Luscious Jackson singing Naked is a state of mind, I think age is a state of mind, because I feel so much of the problem that Generation X had with the boomers, especially when I've been like complaining about boomers literally since I was in high school, which is like pathetic to think about. But like, so much of the problem was that they had this like, grip on culture, but it was a grip that was also very kind of like backward looking and very, very high on their own supply. And that's why that's why the post-Nirvana thing was so exciting, because it was people who would like, even though these were huge bands, like they still had an air of humility about them, because they were reacting in a way to that kind of like striver attitude that the hard rock bands of the Sunset Strip had, that a lot, and there's a lot of like class analysis that you can do with this too, but let's put that aside for now. But I think that I want my cohort to stay open-minded and to stay, curious about things, and I worry that so much of them are like turning into fucking turning into like Joe Rogan clones or whatever, where it's like, what are you doing? So, because he's Gen X, right? Like, yeah, he was born in 1967, so yeah, he's like early Gen X. So like, it's just
I miss News Radio Joe.
Oh my God, yeah. It's just something that so whenever people like start sort of like, especially like people my age, start like bigging up Gen X, I'm always like, well, let's like sit and think about this, because also like, a lot of crappy stuff happened back then. Like, Bill Clinton like moved the Democratic Party very firmly to the right, and like Kurt Loder was doing ads for libertarianism on MTV News, and like you had like a lot of cultural, like the conditions of the 90s led to like the glorification of eating disorder culture in the 2000s, and like there was a lot of that in the 90s too, with like the magazines and stuff that young women would be reading. So I guess my point is just that it's like the important thing isn't about like living up to like generational expectations. It's just more about like being open to like the way that the world is changing, and like even just what we were talking about earlier with like representation on TV. Like the 90s, even with the alt-rock thing was great, but it was still pretty white, and it was there was a lot of also defining against pop music in a way that was maybe a little racist.
Yeah, I do want to send a shout out to my uncle Mike Inez in Alice in Chains.
Yeah, no. Wait, your uncle is Mike Inez from Alice in Chains?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. They were one of my favorite bands. I used to follow, like, this is like a sign of like how weird I was. Not, just like how like not okay I was. I used to fall asleep to Facelift.
Ooh.
Like, what? Like, that's like a weird record to fall asleep to. Just the first side though, because I had like a dual cassette deck, so I would like put Facelift and like usually like a Soundgarden album like on the two cassettes. Yeah.
He's a really cool uncle. He's a cool guy. He doesn't want me to call him uncle. He wants me to call him Kuya. But he's a really cool guy.
Well, give him a shout out for me, because they were an important band. And actually, one thing I love too is like, even with that comment by that student 11 years ago that has obviously stuck with me. I love watching my students like discover the bands that were important to me when I was around their age.
It's cool,
and so it's really cool to see like like this one kid like I for my music class I have them go to a concert, and so I was talking to this one kid and I was like, what concert are you going to? He's like, I think I'm going to go see Jerry Cantrell, and I was like, all right, respect, and obviously like I'm not going to be like, well then you should only listen to blah blah, because like I want I like hearing what's like going on in music now, like this record that I'm reviewing right now is I'm having such a hard time like getting my brain around it, like to the point where like I thought I was listening to it wrong for a while. But like it's interesting to kind of dip into these phenomena. Like I saw Youngblood a couple of years ago, and that was really interesting. And like his appeal is very kind of like classic misfit stuff, but he's doing interesting things. And then, like, there was this, what were they called? Hold on. There was this group, so, I do one of my many jobs is, writing concert picks for the Boston Globe. And, I was looking for a concert, and I was looking at this, local promoting concern called Get to the Gig Boston, where they put on a lot of shows at different venues around town. And, I found this band, I was so fascinated by their name, and they're called Your Arms Are My Cocoon. Wow. And they're this band that, like, I'm just telling everybody I talk to about. So I'm going to tell you and these listeners about them, because they're just so out there, and they're so, like, they're it's the wave emo. First of all, like, now I feel old. Second of all, like, they are doing things that are just, like, so far afield that they feel like they're dwelling in, like, 2027.
Yeah.
And so I love finding out about stuff like that, And then, like, I found out that, like, my friend Leor, who writes for the Chicago Reader in Chicago, like, wrote a profile of them, and I read it, and I was like, oh, okay, So it was just, I don't know, it's just really, so good, talking about that, like, I just think that it's important to, like, no matter how old you are or how busy you are, and I think that, current infrastructures of content consumption discourage this, but I think it's important to, like, keep an open mind and, like, allow yourself to, like, possibly be surprised and delighted by things that you never thought you would be.
Yeah, because I'm always open to all the music that's played out there, because I did ask you for country recommendations. I did ask you for, like, a couple, like, R&B. I think I asked you for some R&B too, and, like, please, people, trust Maura. She has fantastic taste. Like, it's always immaculate. That's the word I like to use. Not to blow you up, because, you're humble. Stay humble. Keep on. But, like, I really appreciate it, and I just throw it on my radio and just listen, and then just, like, chill out while I'm taking a shower, and that's all good stuff. And I was gonna bring this up a little bit because I talked with Trish, and she said she was in music production, and then, like, we went a little bit, like, on, like, she was talking about, like, how there was, like, the girl power movement in the late 90s, early 2000s, but then, like, Spice Girls, Destiny's Child, Independent Women, and, like, I kind of, like, see it today also, although we're seeing it more, like, in a more feminized kind of way for some women, like, where they're taking charge of they're taking ownership of their sexuality, whether that's, like, Sabrina Carpenter or Chappelle Roan, or even Chappell Roan, sorry, or, like,
No, it's okay. I pronounced your name wrong for a very long time. So.
Yeah, now I just embarrassed myself.
That's why I'm very, like, quick about being like, no, it's Chappell, so yeah.
And, like, also seeing, like, it kind of, like, a little bit on, like, more not as in the sexualization part, but, like, we see Doechii, we see Billie Eilish, and, like, it's cool for me to see all these female performers, and there's Taylor Swift in there, why not, as, like, they are actually the megastars right now, and I think that's pretty cool, honestly, because
I mean, I'm very wary of turning, like, women artists into, like, a genre or whatever, because I think that can, like, wind up being a little bit like putting them in a zoo in a way, and, like, having them be, like, and like, again, like, going back to, like, the idea of, like, what's the default and what isn't.
Yeah.
But I think that pop got really exciting, like, maybe, like, 18 months ago.
Yeah.
I think because, TikTok helped, and I think there was a lot of just, like, movement from below. Things have kind of become a little more static since then.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of a bummer, but there is a lot of good music, and, like I really, like, speaking of new R&B, I really like the Coco Jones record that came out last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago now. That's really good. It's called Why Not More. I reviewed that for Rolling Stone. I really like that. And Amory, who did that amazing song One Thing, has a new song out that's really nice.
Oh, so she came back, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love Emery, Jill Scott, Blue Cantrell. Oh, I love all those.
Oh, yeah. Neosol was amazing. Yeah, I wrote about the Roots Picnic that's happening in Philadelphia later this month. And the lineup looks so good. I want to go. And like it would be nice to see friends in Philly too. But hey, like I need to go soon. I'm sorry.
Oh no. I was kind of like I usually
I took the air conditioner to not have it like blaring in the background.
Yeah.
And it's starting to get really hot in my apartment. So
I usually ask the dessert question as my final question.
Okay.
Okay. So like my last question for you is, do you want to leave a parting message to the people? What would your rainbow say?
My rainbow? Everybody should read Lynda Berry. Actually, you should read Lynda Berry for sure.
Okay.
Because she writes a lot about growing up Filipino.
I will definitely check her stuff.
She is an amazing cartoonist and educator. She's somebody who inspired me a lot. And she used to do a comic. She's best friends also with Matt Groening, who created The Simpsons.
Okay.
She had an Evergreen. She had a comic in Alt Weeklies called Ernie Pook's Comique. And then, Alt Weeklies have sort of mostly been gutted because of the death of classified ads and everything. But she wound up teaching this workshop on like creativity and visualization, and I went to it in 2007, and it really changed my life, and it made me like think about like when I got approached about teaching, that was like one of the big touchstones that I had. But her collections of comics are really amazing, very like chaotic, and she's somebody who I think any work by her can open your mind. And I think that she's somebody who definitely is, that's the sort of thing that like I think gets a little lost in this current environment. Like I read about the collections of her comics in Sassy magazine, which was the teen magazine that was like pitching itself to alt girls, in the early 90s.
If we talk alt comics, we're gonna talk all night. I love alt comics.
No. But Lynda Berry, and like the way that she writes about girlhood and not fitting in and womanhood and just everything is so great. But also her books on like creativity and everything are really amazing too. So I definitely recommend anything she's done, and I think that the world would be better to have more of her influence in it. And Matt Groening's been trying, man. He's like always like big upping her. Like I went to a talk that they did about friendship. It was great, and just, but yeah, she's a genius.
Yeah, I'm Lynda Berry.
Lynda Berry.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna look her up. I want to thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk to me and enlighten my audience, because I often feel like that wrestling fans are put in a box of they're just idiots who believe that this is real. But like,
no, they're not. We're not.
Yeah, I believe that the most real thing about pro wrestling fans is our connection to each other as fans and our ability to communicate with each other. And I think I want to thank you for coming on. If you want to do plugs, you could do plugs, because I always like to give people that.
I'm always like, I guess I do a show every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, and it gets rerun at noon Eastern on Wednesday on Uncertain.fm, which is an online radio station programmed in the back end by TJ Connolly, who's a great DJ and who is the reason that I can tell people that I DJed for the Red Sox for 20 games in 2016.
That's cool.
And then just, I'm really findable online. So I have to pay somebody to make me a website. And because I was so stubborn, I'm like, no, I'm going to do it myself, but I'm not. So I just should pay somebody to do it. Because I do have a lot of writing, in Boston Globe and Rolling Stone and other places around the internet. And a lot of sites that don't exist anymore, too.
Okay. You can find those at archive.org. Oh, yeah. I would love to have you. Maybe we can have you on some other time, because I do these panels, and there's somebody I'd like you to meet. So I thank you for coming on. It's been an honor, and hopefully next time we talk, it's not so truncated. But yeah, thank you so much, Maura.
No, it's been really great talking to you, and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. Yeah.